Do you remember that one weird kid in class? Always sat alone, didn't have any friends, black hoodie drawn over his face? If you decided to give that kid a shot and become his friend, maybe you'll find out why nobody wants to be friends with him. Or maybe you'll find out that underneath that school shooter exterior, he's actually a pretty cool guy. That's exactly how I feel about Kingdom the anime. When I started out, I really didn't want to keep going. The quote-unquote animation at the start of the first season is nothing short of a war crime. The story doesn't really get going until about the halfway mark of the season. I had to sit through painful dialogue and my eyes were already bleeding past episode 1. But I stuck through it. I tugged it out and my perseverance paid off in points. Remember when I said, Kingdom will improve after season 1? Well, from season 1 onwards, the Kingdom anime doesn't just improve, it improves drastically. Season 2 sees Shin, leader of the Hishin force, expand his fighting force from 100 to 300 members, and he also meets 2 other aspiring generals who are also 300-man commanders. Ohon, or the name I gave him, Oshol, and you'll see why in a second. Ohon or Oshol is the commander of the Gyokoho unit and Moten is the commander of the Gakuga unit. Ohon or Oshol comes across as a snobby brat who's real proud of his family name, but he can also back it up with real skills, as Shin finds out real quick. Moten seems more laid back, but he also comes from an important family. Shin and Ohon definitely don't like each other, but it's mostly just because Ohon has daddy issues and acts like an Oshol for no reason. They try to give Oshol's character some depth here by telling us that the only time his father spoke to him was when he picked up the spear, and that Ohon has practiced with the spear until his hands were bloody. But at the same time, look at the other side. Shin never even knew his father. He was a slave from his childhood. Oshol at least had a comfortable bed to cry in. There was no soft foam to absorb Shin's tears. He got sand if he was lucky and hard rocks that only drained them sideways towards the sand. Point is, Ohon has no right to be an asshole to the guy who's definitely had it way worse than him but still made it to the same station in life. Or maybe that's what bothers him. We move on and find out that the reason Shin is even meeting up with his fellow commanders is that back in Kanyo, Ryofui has managed to kidnap one of the Sho King's closest confidants. He's demanded that Riboku, the man who defeated Oki in the Battle of Bayo, paid a visit to the capital of Shin if he wants to see the hostage alive again. This is obviously a trap, but the King of Sho is also obviously a little thick in the head because he immediately sends his greatest general there, unarmed, to be slaughtered. Luckily for Riboku, he's very smart. He proposes an alliance which will see Sho not attack Chen, as they take some very important territory, which is very important to them taking the rest of the 7 kingdoms, because that is the King of Shin's plan ultimately, in return for his life. On the recommendation of the High Military Commander, Ryofui agrees, because the High Military Commander is also one of Ryofui's closest advisors. Riboku manages to escape with his life, and in light of this agreement, Chen plans to take Sanyo, a major military base in En, and assign Mogo, the father of Mobo, as the leading general of this battle. Unluckily for Chen, it turns out that Renpao, one of Sho's 3 great generals, was exiled to En, and he hasn't taken military command since, but Oki, one of Chen's 6 great generals and Renpa's bitter enemy in battle but good friend in peacetime, once advised him that if he wants to feel the thrill of battle again, he should go up against Mogo. Not because of Mogo himself, in fact Mogo is described as an fairly average general who's nothing special, but because of his 2 lieutenants, Kanki and Osen. Oki even compares them to the 6 great generals of Chen. As we come to see, the glaze was more than deserved. Osen is a cold-minded tactician who doesn't rise to any kind of bait, no matter how tasty the bait seems. Kanki, on the other hand, is a former mountain bandit whose skills were so great that Oki himself conscripted him into the military instead of killing him. His methods are ruthless, and he's almost the opposite of Osen, where he tries to bait opponents into mistakes with a mixture of cruelty and tactics. A rage bait avoider and a sadistic master level rage baiter, truly a pair made in heaven. These lieutenants are going up against Renpa's 4 pillars. Chief among them is Rinko. Now when I tell you that Rinko is an absolute fucking menace, I am not playing with you. This man takes a mere 300 soldiers with him to the Qin army's main camp and starts chopping off the Qin army's key commanders' heads like a medieval fucking hitman. And this one poor motherfucker was talking to Shin about how they're both commoners who made it to 1,000-man commanders from peasants, and this demon Rinko just shows up, says hey, and lobs his head off in the next scene. Other than the menace Rinko, Renpa also has Kai Shibo, Kyo-en, and Genpo, who all have their own strengths. Compared to Renpa, Mogo obviously doesn't have 4 lieutenants, he has 2. So Shin and his newfound friends, that is Ohon and Moten, have to pick up the slack. The battle begins and Renpa has deployed Kai Shibo to fight Kankai on the left flank and Kyo-en to fight Osen on the right flank. The main armies are supposed to meet in the middle. Genpo on the first day deploys a tactic where he covers the whole battlefield with smoke and directs his troop to fire arrows at the Qin army. Now, none of his archers can actually see the Qin troops, but Genpo has men inside the smoke tracking the Qin troops' movements and communicating their movements to the archers outside through the smoke with the help of gongs and sounds. It's a pretty smart strategy, and Shin and Go beat it, and I'm not kidding. Shin orders his men to find the guy with the biggest ears. And once they find the giant ears guy, the giant ear guy traces the sound of the outer gong, responding to all the gongs inside the smoke. All the while, Kyokai, one of Shin's lieutenants, clears out the gongs inside the smoke and starts giving false signals to the men outside. Using the combination of these tactics, Shin and his army finally break through, but turns out Genpo has a contingency plan for something like this. He has archers ready to fire at anyone who breaks through the smoke screen, and arrows rain down on Shin and his troops. Instead of backing out though, Shin just tugs it out, sacrifices a bunch of his men, and they finally break through to the main line. They try to kill Genpo, but he merely retreats, having inflicted massive casualties on the Qin forces. This is just one of the many examples of beautiful battle strategy shown to us throughout the show. And all the while this is happening in the middle, on the flanks, it seems that Oh-sen is just spamming the retreat button against Kyo-en, whose special ability is being able to direct his troops through whistle arrows. Now, I know this seems pretty gimmicky, but imagine someone being able to direct thousands of troops at the same time through his arrows. They would have to remember the exact positions and orders for each company and do all of this while in the field. It's like playing chess while being a piece on the board yourself. Very impressive. On the other flank, Kanki is just committing war crimes for fun. It is implied that if he met Kaishibo in open battle, he would just get annihilated because Kaishibo is apparently the same strength as Renpa, but he doesn't have the strategist's mind. So Kanki just ambushes Kaishibo's troops, brutalizes their bodies and sends them back to his camp, and then disappears. Like I said, master level rage baiter, waiting for Kaishibo to make a mistake. Here, Renpa makes a mistake of his own. He sends Genpo to replace Kaishibo. Now on the surface, it makes sense. It makes sense to send a tactician if Kaishibo is getting outmaneuvered tactically. He didn't consider though that he was fighting a mountain bandit instead of a military strategist. Kanki is a tricky bastard. He distracts them with his main camp and sneaks into Genpo's camp dressed as one of their soldiers because again, these lieutenants of Mogo, despite their ability, are relatively unknown at this point, so they don't really know him by face. He executes Genpo on the spot and takes over his flank. Meanwhile, Oh-sen has been trying to lure Kyo-en into a death trap this entire time, but even with him lured in, he doesn't attack him directly. He uses one of Shin's friends, Lieutenant Heki, as a distraction without telling him so, and by the end of it, he has Kyo-en surrounded. But then Renpa shows up because he saw this entire thing coming, and Oh-sen retreats into a hill fortress. Now, Oh-sen is pretty much out of the fight, but so is Kyo-en because it's a siege now and Kyo-en can't leave his post. Renpa heads over to Mogo's main camp to take him out himself. They have a long history and Renpa so far has always come out ahead. Mogo hasn't beaten him once. Mogo, in response, constructs a shifting fortress where he lures in the troops with false boundaries and then kills them with archers. But Renpa apparently has the entire path of the mountain memorized, which is some bullshit. But he makes it up the fortress anyway. During this time, Shin and Rinko are having a pretty epic fight, which ends with Shin taking Rinko's life and then aura farming immediately afterwards. Man has his priorities straight. Renpa and Mogo clash swords for a bit, and then Shin shows up and blocks a blow from Renpa directly, when he straight up just tosses Rinko's blade at him for the rage bait. But in the end, Renpa realizes he's surrounded and he surrenders. The battle is won and Shin can go back to being just a regular retard. Life is whole again. Goodbye! And I shall see you all very soon. Hey, just a quick note, the reason I might have sounded very sick in this video is because I am indeed pretty sick. I have a bacterial infection, but I decided to record anyway. So there's that. Other than that, I hope you guys are doing well. Alright, goodbye now, for real.